Research Associate at the Institute for Security Studies, Judith February, joins us now to talk more about the state of capture report. She's in our Cape Town studios for us. Judith, a very good morning to you and thanks for your time. And like we said earlier, we're expecting the ANC to respond to this report this morning. What are we expecting them to say and what should they be saying this morning?
Well, Yuveka, it's very difficult to predict what the ANC will say, what they can say. Of course, the organisation is so deeply divided. So the first question one wants to ask is which part of the ANC will be responding to this? We did hear earlier this week Gwede Mantashe himself say that the president should really be following his conscience. Now, you know, are they going to continue on that route? As I said, the party is so divided, but it really would be very difficult for them to try and defend the president in these circumstances, but perhaps they'll kick for touch and say that they wait for the outcome of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. That might be a sort of safe, holding position for the ANC.
Speaking of that Judicial Commission of Inquiry, I mean, how urgent is the need now that be set up, and where exactly will it begin with this 355-page report with all of this information on it?
Well, Yuveka, we must remember that, the arms deal report when it came out was 799 pages. And how interesting that somebody like Fana Hlongwane, the fixer in the arms deal, also comes up in the state of capture report. But that's another topic of conversation. The public protector has, interestingly enough, provided very clear deadlines and dates, number of days that this commission of inquiry needs to be set up within within 30 days, I think it is, and it has so much time to do its work. She's been very good about that. So therefore, one is bound by that. Of course, the president might decide to take this report on review in terms of the Administrative Justice Act, Section 6. He might say that there's been administrative unfairness. It would be very difficult to see how he would make that argument in a compelling way. He's already got a bloody nose from the North Gauteng High Court, so one would caution against that if you were his counsel. But he might decide to go that route, which would stymie the Commission of Inquiry, but only for a while, because it will have to be set up. And the Chief Justice, interestingly enough, has the pick of judge, which tells us a lot about the faith that Thuli Madonsela had in the president to choose a judge who was not executive minded. I think she might have had reservations about that.
Judith, what do we read into just, the president withdrawing that court challenge yesterday? One would think, does it seem like he's kind of given up? Or does it seem like he might have something else up his sleeve, and that because the feeling is that he certainly is not somebody who will go down without a fight?
Yuveka, he can't go down without a fight, in my view, because remember, we've still got the spy tapes issues, spy tapes matter, which is live. 783 charges of fraud and corruption related to the arms deal. So the president is fighting on every legal corner. For me, I think that really he must have received advice, perhaps from his counsel, that they were fighting a losing battle. The only way he could have won that yesterday was to say that the report should not see the light of day because it's not in the public interest. I don't know how you could make that argument, given what's already in the public domain and given that it affects the president, procurement, and his associates and members of his cabinet so very directly. So he really was on a losing wicket, so to speak. And I think that he might have got some good advice, as he did from counsel in the Constitutional Court case on Nkandla, to say, you need to withdraw this application.
Now, we know that, with the host of other charges, fraud and corruption charges leveled against him, and that he's managed to survive and sort of keep away from over the past couple of years, one has to wonder whether this is something, Judith, could this mark the end? It may not be immediately, it may not be in the next few weeks or months, but could it mark the end for Jacob Zuma, also depending on what comes out of that inquiry, and how otherwise can that inquiry find based on all the information in this report?
The inquiry is going to be difficult, not only for President Zuma, because it lays bare, certainly from the draft of the Public Protector's report, the workings of his cabinet, how his ministers go about their business, some of them, like Msebenzi Zwane and Desmond Roy, and then how people like Brian Molefe have been acting, also that Lynn Brown seemed to have turned a blind eye to conflicts of interest. These are damning allegations, also around the president himself, of course. So if I were the president, I'd want to, the Commission of Inquiry will be difficult. It would be difficult for the president and for the ANC, but it will have to go ahead. And so it's very hard to see how the president can get out of that. But of course, he has his back against the wall. He is cornered. And so his options are getting fewer and fewer. And Yvette, I think we must remember that as the president, as he comes to the end of his term and as we reach 2017 in the ANC conference, more power is ebbing away from him in terms of his ability to give out patronage, but also people start looking towards beyond the lame duck and towards the next person who might be in power. So a very difficult position for the president, but he's been here before. If we think about the Nkandla judgment, we've been here before. And so, but certainly what we're seeing is the unraveling of this presidency in quite a dramatic way. And it is certainly the beginning of the end.
I think, Jude, the other question is, what do we do about Eskom and what's come out about Brian Molefe, who many people, I think, are surprised about this morning, and also who with the nuclear program in their hands?
Indeed, Brian Molefe comes out of this looking very poor. He has, the phone records, and Yvette, I think what's interesting is the use of cell phone records to place people talking to the Guptas and so on. All the visits that were made to the Gupta home, and also the facts now around Tegeta and why there was a 600 million rand prepayment for that coal contract, and why we were contracting with Tegeta when we could have been contracting with Optimum Coal directly and getting the coal cheaper. So these are all placing personal or the interests of your associates above that of the country. Brian Molefe certainly should not be sleeping well if he is going to provide any testimony before a commission of inquiry, and nor should Lynn Brown, who seems to have turned a blind eye, as I said, to the conflicts of interest of the members of the Eskom board and their relationships to the Guptas. And this nuclear deal is a hot potato politically and financially, and we've seen Praveen Gordhan try to draw a line under it. And I think that Molefe is going to find himself with very little credibility, with few friends, and also under extreme pressure now.
And also, I mean, the other person who has come out quite damaged in this is Duduzane Zuma, and just basically his role in everything, because we do know that Thuli Madonsela wanted to question President Jacob Zuma and question him about his son's role in all of this as well. So one has to wonder now, and his relationship with the Guptas, just where do they fall in all of this? I mean, he's not a political figure. Duduzane Zuma is not a political figure as such. So this report not finding basically the Guptas saying that they have done anything wrong. So how will the Commission of Inquiry address those two figures? When I say figures, the Gupta family and Duduzane Zuma in this, because they're not political figures in all of this.
Well, they don't have to be political figures. I mean, they are also receiving, if one's talking about a breach of the Executive Members Ethics Act, and that is about the President and ministers of his cabinet giving confidential information to people who are outsiders. But they don't have to be members of government to be subpoenaed, for example, by a commission of inquiry to give evidence about their meetings with government ministers, and they will have to be honest. And if they aren't, they will be questioned by the commission, and that might see them wanting, one might imagine. Duduzane Zuma has a very interesting role to play. I mean, Fana Hlongwane calls him a son almost, and it seems like the two of them were these fixers, were sort of, doing these introductory meetings, but also Duduzane Zuma was getting very wealthy in all of this. Of course, there could be criminal liability. The Public Protector is not excluding that. But then, of course, when there's criminal liability, one would hope that the Hawks would be investigating these matters, but no doubt they'll be slow to do that, given their partisan way of going about their work. And also it leaves one in the hands of Sean Abrams again, and that, we've seen this week, that would be an unsatisfactory way of trying to sort these matters out. But I think, Yvette, the point is here, that the Commission of Inquiry, you know, whatever the findings will be and the recommendations that will come out of that, but it's going to lay bare President Zuma, it's going to lay bare his relationship with his associates and his friends. It's going to lay bare the workings of the state. And that is going to be extremely damaging for President Zuma, for the ANC, and, you know, for the country. We're going to have to think of ways to move on from that beyond a Zuma presidency so that we can get to some form of accountable decision making at the very highest level of government, which clearly has been undermined here.
Thanks very much for that. Senior Research Associate, Institute for Security Studies, Judith February, in our Cape Town studios for us this morning. Well, that brings us to our viewer question this morning. We'd like to hear what you think about Thuli Madonsela's final report. We're asking you what in that state of capture report stood out the most for you, what worries you the most. You can post your thoughts on our Facebook page or simply tweet me at Jubeka R or at ENCA, and we'll bring you those comments a little later on. We're back after the break with more news for you.